Good morning, everyone. Welcome to what is either the 11th or 12th, I can't remember the years, open budget forum for the town of Fairfield. Would everyone please rise? As is custom, we're going to begin our meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. I'm going to ask Mr. DeWitt to lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right. Believe it or not, today we gather together after a long budget hearing process to discuss the budget for fiscal year 2020. Allow that to sink in for a little bit. This is for the year from July 1st, 2019 through June 30th, 2020. I want to thank you all for coming. We look forward to this every year, to speaking with the public and getting an appreciation and an understanding of your views. I also want to thank all the people that have written us emails and letters and gotten in touch with us to express their opinions. Those emails and letters do get read. They do get considered within our deliberations. It's a little bit hard with the volume of them, particularly in today's day and age when you can press a button and do a mass distribution to respond to all those emails, but don't think that they're not considered during our discussions. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about the rules of engagement. This is meant to be your opportunity to talk with us, your opportunity to express your opinion on the various budget items that are before us. It is not question and answers, and it's not about calling out individual board members on individual positions, right? It's about you coming up. Now, a board member might choose to respond to any comment that's made, particularly, and I've done this in the past, if there's a comment of fact or process that's misunderstood. An example of that comes up almost every year. You'll get somebody that's concerned about the education budget, and they'll come up and say, please don't cut this program or that program. This board doesn't have that power. For the Board of Education budget, we get to cut one number. We get to review and approve one number. How that funding gets split is the sole determination of the Board of Education working with the Education Administration, not with us. So we can approve the entire budget if that's what we wanted to do. And if the Board of Education made a decision to defund something within that budget, that's entirely within their purview, just so we know. And there's things like that throughout the process. We've been doing this a long time that people just don't understand because they're not involved in the day-to-day. So they might have a misconception or a miscommunication. So if that comes up, we will address that during our comments. Speakers get 2 minutes to express their opinions. We'd like to hold to that. We try not to be rude and cut anybody off, but we'd like it to be at 2 minutes. We would like it to not be redundant. If you agree with something that's already been said, happy to say, hey, I agree with the comments that were just made, and here's my position on another topic or what have you, as opposed to being redundant. We do have a microphone set up over here that I'm sure does work, and a sign-in sheet. Very important when you come up to the microphone. Please identify yourself and your address, and then please also put it on the sign-in sheet. It really helps our recording secretaries after you speak. Elected officials. Now, a lot of times we have elected officials who want to speak at this meeting. That's fine, and we encourage that. But the elected officials actually do have the opportunity, in the most part, particularly RTM and Board of Selectmen, and the Board of Education as it relates to the budget, their budget, they get the opportunity to vote. So please let us hear from the citizens of Fairfield first, and then the elected officials can come up and give their view. And of course, they have the opportunity to vote on those areas of the budgets. I say this every year, and we've actually been very good. Polite, respectful, and watch our language. There are people that watch this. There are children, young people at home that watch this. And we want to make sure we set a good example. And quite frankly, with today's age and tenor, not just for our young people at home, but also for the state and for the federal government. And we want to show them that Fairfield can actually have agreements and disagreements and treat each other with respect and decorum. And we've made a hallmark of that, and this public forum has really never devolved into anything other than a good dialogue and a good discussion. And that's the beauty of our democracy, and that's also the beauty of our town, and we'd like to keep it that way. At the end of our forum, each of the members, I'll pass the microphone around, and each of our members can choose to address the audience based on what they've heard, their overall views on the budget, whatever they so choose, and they will do that, and I don't think we've ever had somebody not do that. To be noted, at the present time, the state budget has still not been passed, and it will not be passed until we're already done with this process. And that represents a problem for us because the proposed budget does have some financial implications for the town of Fairfield. The budget proposed by the governor that's being considered right now includes a push down of expense for unfunded teacher pensions from the state level of over $700,000. That is not factored into this budget, but that is a risk to the town as we move forward. That's been a risk to the town several of the last few years, and probably as we continue. As we all know, and as this board is well aware, the state has a serious fiscal mess on its hands, and in several instances, they've tried to push this down. They've tried to impact us. We've been lucky so far. We have had some impact, such as revenue from the state going away over the last few years. It's much less than what it was, but we're holding steady right now. But that is a risk point and will continue to be an uncertainty for this budget. Okay? With that in mind, I'm going to introduce the members of my board. To my left is Liz Zesma, Sheila Martin, Dave Becker, Chris DeWitt, John Matola, and Mr. Jim Walsh is walking in. Mr. Jim Brown and Ms. Mary LeClaire, they had day jobs, and they had responsibilities out of town related to their jobs today. They both send their regrets, and I know they both wanted to be here. By way of introduction, I'm Tom Flynn, and I'm the chairman of this board as well. So we look forward to hearing from you. I thank you for coming out on a beautiful Saturday morning. And with that, let's kick it off. The microphone is all yours.
Good morning, and thank you both for this opportunity and for the countless hours that you all devote to the town of Fairfield. The BOE says it must rely on other elected bodies to tell them what we can afford to spend on our schools. That's fine. Here are 5 considerations. First, the state of Connecticut is failing, including no job growth in more than 30 years, a declining population, and chronic budget deficits that it is planning to close once again with substantial tax increases rather than spending cuts, and perhaps by transferring responsibility for teacher pension costs to towns like Fairfield. Second, Fairfield's tax base is declining due to continued pressure on home prices and only limited commercial development, neither of which is going to change anytime soon in a failing state that is raising taxes and losing jobs and people. Third, disposable incomes are being cut for many residents by the new restrictions on the deductibility of state and local taxes. Fourth, despite a 4.5% decline in enrollment, the BOE budget is already up $22.5 million, or 15% over the last 5 years, which is 5 times more than the increase in town spending and 2.5 times the increase in the CPI. Fifth, the BOE has completely ignored the BOF's repeated requests to find structural savings in its current overall spending of $200 million, which now represents 65% of our total spending. So please tell the BOE what is painfully obvious to the taxpayers. Fairfield cannot afford to spend another $8 million, let alone another $8.7 million. Another $8 million would mean an increase in spending of $30.5 million, or 20% since 2014, and an increase in spending per pupil of 27%, which would be 3 times greater than the increase in the CPI and almost 4 times greater than the increase in town spending. The BOE and the taxpayers are relying on you to decide how much Fairfield can afford to spend, and we look forward to hearing your decision on Wednesday.
Thank you, and can you please state your name and your address for the record?
Sorry, Bud Morton, Sasko Hill Road.
Thank you.
Good morning. Herb Lime Cooler, Spruce Street. First, thanks for your work. I know it's often grueling work, especially this time of the year. We appreciate it. Fairfield Senior Advocates is a nonpartisan, all-volunteer citizen action group dedicated to a Fairfield and a Connecticut desirable and affordable for seniors. FSA advocates on state and town budget, financial matters, senior-friendly housing, plus programs important to seniors. We support town committees through our research. We testify in Hartford and work with state leaders, as we did against the governor's proposal to eliminate recent Social Security and pension tax relief. We work to protect low-income programs for seniors. We do this in part because seniors are so important to our town and our state economies. Just seniors over 65 constitute about 15% of residents and more than 25% of our households. And residents 55 to 64 represent about another 12% of our population. Just the 65 plus group account for about 20% of our property tax revenue. If the town allocates only about $4 million directly for senior programs and facilities, and when their share of townside costs are included, seniors 65 plus alone produce about a $20 million net gain for the town. And the town incurs an expected loss approaching $10,000 a year when a senior leaves, when a senior household leaves. Yet incredibly, we have no real strategies to keep our seniors. Seniors are never cited as the future. That's the children and the millennials. But if we don't start investing and to keep more of our seniors here, there may not be much of a future for any of us in Fairfield. Thanks.
Thank you.
Jan Reber, Beaumont Street. I'd like to endorse Bud Morton's statement. I think he really said it all in just a few words. I'd like to read a statement from Gordon McKenzie from Palmer Bridge, Fairfield. He couldn't be here and asked me to read a statement for him. I'm a member of the Fairfield Senior Advocates Organization and I'd like to make specific points which address the negative effects of our state government that's being inflicted on our seniors here in Fairfield and elsewhere in Connecticut. We know our state is operating under difficult financial challenges. After months of negotiations, including Fairfielders writing thousands of letters and giving testimony in Hartford during 2017, we helped enable the passage of legislation that gives seniors earning less than $75,000 for single filers and $100,000 for joint filers full exemption from paying Connecticut state income tax on their Social Security benefits. That was effective January 1st of this year. Similarly, with the same income level eligibility, the state legislature granted a 14% exemption from tax on seniors' pension income, also effective January 1st of this year, rising to 28% for next year. However, in the past few weeks, the new governor has proposed to eliminate both of those acts and incredibly eliminate them retroactively. Secondly, again, under major fiscal pressure, as you are aware of the proposals the state legislature is now making that would cause major increases in our property tax rates for Fairfield and other so-called wealthy towns in Connecticut. Property taxes are already the single largest tax payment that most of our Fairfield seniors make, more than 60% of which goes to funding school expenses. In fact, for many seniors, their property tax in Fairfield is more than the total of their federal and state income taxes and their sales tax combined. Examples of the state intruding on our property tax revenue include making our towns pay over 25% of teacher pensions, as Chairman Flynn mentioned, seizing town revenue from motor vehicle property tax, and telling the state use a standard mill rate for all the towns and redistributing this revenue.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I didn't mean to be rude, but we were over 2 minutes. I appreciate it.
Good morning.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Jared, can you turn up the microphone? The audience has had a couple of hearings.
Let me give the customer.
Thank you, sir.
Good morning, dear members of the Board of Finance. My name is Beverly Silverman, and I live at 710 Roland Road in Fairfield. thank you for your service to the town. We know you put many hours into putting together a budget and are bombarded from all sides. I know my comments won't be able to be considered in this year's budget, but I ask that they are in your consideration for next year's budget. I'm speaking as a representative of Fairfield Senior Advocates, but also I speak for the many seniors in town. There are 9,000 at least of us. We live here, we've paid taxes, and we feel that we are being ignored. We need and deserve a new senior center, and we want it to be a true community center with multi-purpose facilities that can be used by teens and the entire community, including on weekends. The current center was the old field school until 1992, when it became the senior center. That's close to 30 years ago. And it's only seen minimal maintenance and improvement since that time. There's asbestos in the walls. There are restroom facilities designed for children, and a general rundown feeling in the building. That's in spite of the dedication of Julie and her staff, who do an outstanding job. Many Fairfielders won't go to the senior center. They prefer Westport. And they go to Stratford for pickleball. A new and improved community center could provide state-of-the-art facilities for programming and service. It would be something to be proud of, to show off. We ask that you review the top 10 committee report Fairfield Senior Center submitted to the First Selectman's Office in 2012 and ask the Human Services Commission and the administration to be sure to include funds for planning a new community center in the budget for 2021.
Thank you. Ma'am, could you please sign our document up here?
Oh.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Good morning. I'm Jonathan Black, 38 James Street in Fairfield. I'm a Fairfield resident. I'm a senior. I'm still working, and I'm here representing the FSA, the Senior Advocates. I just would like to say these are very difficult times in Connecticut. There's no question about it, and everybody has to pitch in and do their share. And one of the things I have noticed in Fairfield is that there seems to be a lack of funding for senior programs. And seniors are important to this community. We take care of our grandchildren, we still support our tax base, and we provide an awful lot to the community as far as knowledge and wisdom. And I would like to address the board and ask you that in the future, I realize this year it's very tough, that you would take some of the senior issues under consideration and approve them. And I'd like people in this room to understand that nobody wants to not support our children, that they're very important also, but our seniors are very proud, and you don't know how many of them are really suffering under these hard times. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
I'm Joyce Lake from Green Acres Lane. Dear members of the Board of Finance, I am a member of Fairfield Senior Advocates and a volunteer at the Senior Center. I have 2 points to make. Firstly, within the next 15 years, the upcoming population of seniors, currently 50 through 64 years of age, is 33% more than the number of Fairfield seniors over 65 years of age in Fairfield today. The increase is largely due to the baby boomer generation. There is a very real need for Fairfield to step up its planning for the future needs of the upcoming population. And I have data that I'm going to leave with you to support that.
You can give it to our clerk who's sitting right there.
I will. Secondly, the senior center, although very active, is out of date and second rate to many centers in neighboring towns. Fairfield should have a senior center worthy of the seniors and their years of tax-paying dollars, particularly in view of the upcoming swell in the senior population. Please consider our seniors in your budgeting process now and in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And please leave your documents with us. Take that off.
Hi, I'm Owen Guernsey and I live at 241 Brookside Drive. I am a fourth grader at Osborne Hill School. I thank you so much for the opportunity to speak to you today. I would like to tell you about a special program at my school. It's called STEAM and it stands for Science, Technology, Engineering, Art, and Math. This is the first year we've had STEAM at my school and I love it. One of the reasons I love STEAM is that we get to do things we normally wouldn't get the opportunity to do. For example, we've learned how to program robots. Another reason the STEAM program is great is it has let me consider different careers, such as engineering and architecture. I hope you'll support the education budget so I can keep learning with STEAM.
Good morning. My name is Bill Lenahan, 42 Alma Drive, a Fairfield senior advocate. Tito D's consultants, Goody and Clancy, acknowledged seniors are cash assets to Fairfield, making up 28% of our households. Seniors contribute an estimated $55 to $60 million in tax revenues, yet the town directly invests less than $5 million back to the seniors. I ask you, is that fair? Most Fairfield seniors, real estate taxes represent their largest expense. For fixed income seniors on Social Security and limited or no pension at all, real estate taxes can account for 25 to 30% of their adjusted gross income. Again, is that fair? The current senior and disabled tax relief program is definitely broken. Prior year RTM committee have flagged annual participation declines and the QTAV asset test as problematic. Unfortunately, many seniors are forced to remain in the workforce, and you just heard that from one of our members, or return to the workforce just to remain living in Fairfield with the high taxes and the high cost of living. But some, based on the broken program, are no longer eligible for tax relief. Again, is that fair? A 2019 RTM bipartisan committee unanimously approved an improved senior and disabled tax relief program, yet the board tabled that proposal. I know you had many reasons to table it, but it could have been reviewed and elements of that improvement could have been passed. An RTM member in a recent RTM meeting rightfully, I say rightfully, suggested bipartisan leadership of both the RTM and the Board of Finance meet to map out the next steps on this program. I urge this board to meet with the RTM leadership immediately after the final budget discussion. Seniors can't wait another year. Thank you.
Well, I'm going to address those that speaker. Thank you for the comments. There's a couple factual errors in there. Number one, this board did not table senior citizen tax relief proposals. What happened was the town attorney issued an opinion that for the last 30 years, the way senior citizen tax relief had been handled by the town was not appropriate. It was against state statute. That ruling came out in late January, very early February. So what we did to accommodate that was we brought forth the existing senior citizen tax relief program and retroactively approved that program as we were asked to do. The program that was being worked on by the RTM did not have time to be reviewed and was unable to be enacted for this year, regardless of whatever actions we took, because it was too late in the process. And therefore, we said publicly at that meeting and privately on several times that we would take up that program and actually the process as a whole and design a better process, or a process that this board could live with, in order to move senior citizen tax relief forward for the next fiscal year, which is the best we could do. Now, why did we decide to wait until after this budget process? Several reasons. Number one, there were significant elements of the program that was presented to us at one point that we were concerned about. Those elements included the fiscal cost, which was unknown, the legality of certain elements of that program, which was unknown, and the administration of that program, which was undetermined, as well as the effectiveness of that program. And did it actually accomplish the tasks? And in fact, what were the tasks that program, what were the objectives? All of those issues remained unanswered as we saw a presentation which was a courtesy presentation. And those are all items that we thought needed to be addressed. In addition, we would have better clarity as to where our budget was going, where our tax revenues were going, and what the state was going to do with the budget on a go-forward basis. And because we couldn't enact it for this year anyway, there was no reason to take it up without that information available. Better available information provides to better decision-making, provides to a better result. Now, there's been some public commentary which is absolutely inaccurate, saying that there has not been discussion between the Board of Finance leadership and the RTM on this issue. I personally have had a phone call with the moderator of the RTM, 2 phone calls with one of the deputy majority leaders of the RTM, 5 phone calls with the minority leader of the RTM, 5 phone calls with the deputy minority leader of the RTM, 2 phone calls with the chairwoman of the committee, and a breakfast meeting with the deputy majority leader of the RTM and the chairwoman of that committee to explain very clearly what I just explained to yourself. In addition, we've gotten additional information and an affirmation of the town attorney's opinion, which was the process had been wrong for all those years, and therefore there was some question as to whether senior citizen tax relief was done appropriately. So our goal is to do it right, do it once, do it in time for next year's budget, and get a result that everybody can live with. Let me be very clear. The Board of Finance did not ask for this role. We assumed, based on precedent and past practice, that this was a role that the RTM was supposed to take. That ended up being wrong. They have to affirm it at the end. But apparently, according to the town attorney and state statute, it had to start here. I think I'm bipartisan in saying that Republicans and Democrats alike believe in senior citizen tax relief. We believe it's important. And by the way, one of the best elements of senior citizen tax relief is low taxes for everybody. And the next thing is to make sure, as the last few speakers have said, is that our seniors are taken care of and stay in town. So I thank you for the comments. I hope I clarified some of the process, because I know there's been some misinformation out there, and I'm sorry that happens. We want to see this done right. Thank you. Go right ahead, sir.
I am Mike Harrington. I live at 93 Rolling Ridge Road. I listened with interest to you all discussing the marina and the dredging of the channel at your meeting last Wednesday, and I'd like to add some additional comments. I have here the minutes of every meeting of the Marina Subcommittee held since it was created. I've distilled the relevant comments to one page in the interest of time. In July of 2016, Marina Manager Kennedy reported that the permit is in place to dredge the sand pit this winter, with the possibility of the channel though it's more likely a year down the road. February 2017, the RTM approved $700,000 as part of a 10-year bond for dredging the channel. June 13th, 2017, Mr. Kinney reported that the dredging application has been filed with DEEP. He understands that things are slow there, but if there is no response in approximately 8 weeks, you are considered approved and can go forward. Anyone who knows how that process works knows you don't get your permit by default. At that same meeting, Mr. Hanrahan, and I quote, who has been contacting DEEP, says they have told him they have no such application. The minutes of September 2017, Mr. Kenny stated, dredging is a non-recurring capital expense and is not included in the town spending freeze. October 9, 2018, quote, our consulting engineers, Race of Stratford, Connecticut, have completed plans and permit applications, to be submitted. December, the next month, Mr. Calabrese reported that the permitting process has continued, that the certificate of permission has been filed with DEEP. He believes the timeline is as follows. 2014, last dredging. 2016, saw the need for more dredging. 2017, town spending freeze, no action. 2018, filing began, but a deadline was missed. Folks, I no longer understand how my government works. Who's responsible for getting this channel dredged? The Park and Rec Commission? The Marina Subcommittee? Department of Public Works? I don't know. They didn't do it. You now have a channel that at 6:30 on July 3rd, when the fireworks happen this year, will be low tide.
Thank you,
and
sir.
it is unsafe. You bet. Thank you.
Doug Chevanello, 3 Brookfield Avenue. Again, I'm going to speak to the marina. I understand it's not part of the 2020 budget, but what they're, and I understand the situation you guys are in, with, especially with the state cuts and stuff. I don't even know how you put a budget together right now with what they're trying to dump on us. That being said, you do control the purse strings. There's a proposal in its infancy to a major rebuild of the marina, probably upwards from the numbers I just saw of $10 million. I don't think now is the time or the place to do it. From what Mike said, there's clearly an issue with maintenance of what's there. I don't see why we can't, put more effort into maintaining what we have versus trying to do a $10 million rebuild when we don't know if we're going to have enough money to get through the year because of future state cuts. I didn't have any prepared statements, so I'm just winging it here. I just wanted to make you aware of what's coming up, and like I said, you guys control the purse strings, so I hope you keep an eye on it, because I don't think it's the right time or the right place. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. David McKenzie, Merwins Lane, Fairfield, Connecticut. I've been a resident of Fairfield for over 40 years, and I've been on the RTM for 4 of those. I accept that almost 65% of the town's budget goes to education, while only 30% of the families have children in the schools. And though I'm in that remaining 70%, I recognize the importance of investing in Fairfield's children and providing them with a quality education. But what I don't understand is why the Board of Education budget has increased 17% in the last 5 years, 10% faster than the cost of living index, despite our student population going down by 5% in the same time period. Any town resident knows that Connecticut is in dire financial straits, and despite Hartford's annual tax increases, will remain a fiscal disaster for years to come. In the last 5 years, house values have dropped significantly, and there are multiple for sale signs on every street. Some of them have been there for years. Yet our Board of Education is still asking for a 4.6% budget increase in the face of a shrinking student population. What are they thinking? Do they have a total disregard for the fiscal problem that we're in? Don't they recognize that significant budget cuts can be realized by eliminating redundancy, rooting out waste and overhead without having to dilute the educational benefits for students? I'm asking our elected representatives on the Finance Committee and on the RTM to step up to their responsibilities and do what's necessary to fix this problem. Just rubber stamping a bloated...
Thank you.
Thank you.
Matt Hutzelman, Pansy Road, Fairfield. Just this week, I was just going around Fairfield, and I walked by the Fairfield Woods, and even almost at 8 o'clock at night, there's just people there, and there's so much energy. And this yesterday morning, I was at Osborne Hill at 8 in the morning, and the orchestra was playing. It's just so much energy and just a sense of community. And that's just what I don't want to lose in Fairfield. I know people who live in other places where, you know, it's a cheap community. It's a cheap community. There is no community. I want to live in Fairfield. I don't want to live somewhere else. If I wanted to live somewhere else, I would live there. I want Fairfield to remain Fairfield. You know, there's a phrase that economists know: the price of everything and the value of nothing. The value in this town is what the services we get to cut education. And I'm not a senior. I would be in favor of a new senior center if, you know, it would be reasonable. I want all Fairfielders to have the services they want and need. Our town was just rated one of the top safest towns in Connecticut. I don't understand what the tax advocates want. Do they want it to be a less safe town? Yeah, I mean, is a little danger good for people? I want our education, our public safety, our seniors. I want everyone. I don't know how much the fireworks cost, maybe $25,000 or something, but that is a community. That makes us a community. I could live in a place where there is no community. I don't want that. I want to live in a place where people value the schools, value everyone. The beach is there anyway, but there are other things that make this town a place that I want to live, and I don't want to lose that. And, you know, saving $20 or whatever my property tax isn't going to give me back the loss of services that I get by just taking a meat cleaver. There's no waste in in education. There's no magic pinata that has this money in it. If you cut, you'll cut to the bone, and we'll lose what makes Fairfield Fairfield. Thank you.
Thank you.
Steve Baker, 22 Charles Street. Today I'm speaking on behalf of, as a PTA president of this school, Fairfield Ludlow High School. And true to our mission of promoting children's health, well-being, and educational success, the Fairfield Ludlow High School PTA supports the superintendent's budget as passed by the Board of Education. And on behalf of our 1,200 members, ask that the Board of Finance restore the $700,000 cut by the Board of Selectmen and pass the superintendent's original budget. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, good morning. My name is Melanie Ross. I'm a resident of Fairfield, and I have 2 children that are currently attending Roger Sherman Elementary School. And I'm also very active in the PTA and one of the PTA presidents. I'm here today to request that the Board of Finance restore the $700,000 to the Board of Ed budget on April 3rd. Fairfield is a growing community, and the schools need this money to maintain our aging buildings and support our janitorial staff, who are the backbone and are essential for our schools to operate. Forbes magazine just published this month and noted that the latest report from the U.S. Department of Commerce, Bureau of Economic Analysis, that showed that economic activity from arts and culture increased 2.9%. That represents 4.3% of our gross domestic product, or more than $800 billion of our economic activity. Fairfield's music department was awarded the National Association of Music Merchants Best Communities for Music Education Award this month. And this is the straight year that our town got that award. Fairfield's public schools are only able to achieve this award through the funding that they get from the town. Research into music education shows that children benefit socially, cognitively, their speech and reading are all improved through music and arts. Education is not only reading and math, it is the arts. The arts are always unappreciated, and you should be aware that it's a big economic engine of Fairfield. From elementary school to high school, whether in the choir or playing an instrument, there are thousands of children that are active in the arts, and families continue to move here and remain in Fairfield because of our well-supported public schools. Lastly, our schools need more than ever to maintain the safety of our children, staff, and teachers, now more than ever. Please restore that money, the $700,000, that will ensure our schools to continue to do what they do really well. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Rabab Hassan Sayed, 579 Judd Street. We moved to Fairfield for both our boys so that they may be able to benefit from the legendary school system here. As parents of a second grade child at Osborne Hill with special needs in the district, he's autistic and nonverbal. Budget cuts can truly be a cause of grave anxiety for us. Our son has benefited tremendously from the CLC programs and has been thriving at school and all his services, and has been able to enjoy more and more time in the regular classroom with his wonderful peers as well. And they too have benefited from his presence in their classroom, given how much they have learned from him. They are nothing short of lifelong lessons, and this is all such a testament to the wonderful programs and support that are offered by our phenomenal school system to my son and his fellow students. I have a sixth grader at Fairfield Woods Middle School who's also hugely benefited from the wonderful STEAM enrichment, technologically diverse programs and opportunities that have been offered to him and his peers. Every aspect of his education has played a great role in enhancing his personality and inner confidence. From the superb staff to the brilliant gift and talent projects and beyond, they are all contributing to the sound establishment of the individual that he will eventually become, and that's huge. I think it's terribly problematic that Fairfielders are pitted against Fairfielders, parents versus the rest of the town. We all pay taxes, contribute to the town, and fact is, Fairfield is sought after because of the school system. It directly affects your property value for whoever has an issue with that particular point. Most importantly, just to the gentleman who had offered his opinion up earlier, if you would really like to know why there's an increase in the Board of Ed budget, let's talk about that. Our schools need to be safe places for our children, apart from education, which maybe 10 years ago was all that was considered. Mental health is a huge concern. We live in dangerous times. There's social media, there's bullying, and suicides are on the rise. Let's not ignore that huge fact. We need professional development to help support the staff, who in turn provide support to our children and see them through these times. But thank you for your consideration.
Thank you so much.
Good morning. My name is Catherine Giff, and I live on Tamor Court. I am too volunteering with the Fairfield Senior Advocates now, as I've recently reached a milestone. And clearly, I'm now part of a new and improved target market that gets to wake up each morning to messages of empowerment in our email boxes. Yesterday's affirmation was, in 2 to 3 years, baby boomers will account for 70% of disposable income. Well, last month, my husband and I did pay for our children's 24th, hopefully final, college semester. So maybe. But if we doubt the income per capita, we know these percentages are not always driven by per capita, but they're definitely driven by the large number of people in these age groups, numbers that are clearly in Fairfield. We've heard already that there are 9,065 plus year olds in the town. Well, there's an additional 12,000 50 to 64 year olds. How are these combined 20,000 resident seniors going to be served by our one senior center that hasn't had any real capital improvements in a decade? And it was built for about 400 of these same residents to go to school. I say same residents because the vast majority of our seniors have lived in Fairfield for decades. And we want to stay in the community that we have made. I wholeheartedly always enjoy Matt's energy, and that's what we want for Fairfield. We want to stay here. And while the lack of housing options is a topic for another board, I ask this board to prioritize a retention rate for our residents and to promote programs and services for the huge numbers of long-term tax-paying residents in our town. Please lead and encourage strategies to keep our seniors living and engaged in Fairfield. We have contributed much. We have made this town what it is, and we will continue to contribute if you want us to stay.
Thank you so much.
Good morning. My name is Duncan Banfield, South Benson Road. Also proud to serve as a member of the Board of Library Trustees and ask for your support of the library's budget for the coming fiscal year. We heard very passionately argued a moment ago about community and its importance and its uniqueness in Fairfield. A library plays an exceptionally important role in building community. Whether it's our seniors or whether it's our students, really we touch and have programs that benefit all of those groups. I think the second point I really want to make today and drive home is I think sometimes it's been said that you only miss something when you don't have it, or you notice its absence when you don't have it. As you may well know, the library, our main branch, was closed from Thanksgiving through the beginning of the new year. We were able to continue to serve the community through our Fairfield Woods branch, but we heard a huge outpouring of interest, of concern, of, I think, just absence of that presence of the library in the lives of our constituents, and want to make sure that we understand, really, as a town, the important role that that library plays in the lives of our residents. So again, thank you for consideration, and ask you to please support the budget for the public library this coming fiscal year. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for your service.
Good morning. My name is David Gray, Dill Road, Fairfield resident, also a father of 2 in the public school system. I'm also part of the Board of Trustees at the public library. There are 2 points that I wanted to make today. Is the library, number one, for both our branches, are really jewels of this town. They are a tremendous resource. They attract new families. They're an amazing resource for existing residents. The 2 things that we urge the board to keep in mind while you're looking at our budget and considering is, number one, the importance of investing in new materials every year. New books, new audiobooks, ebooks, DVDs, periodicals. We need to continue to maintain that, and by losing that budget, we won't be able to stay relevant in terms of the access to that content. That's incredibly important for all libraries. The second is the investment to maintain all of our resources. The people that are part of the library staff are such a valuable part of the library. It's not just a digital world. People come to the library to connect with the experts that run these facilities, and that staff are the real experts. So that human touch versus sort of a world of outsourcing is an important part of connecting the library to our community. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for your service.
Good morning, John Wynn, Harbor Road. Members of the Board of Finance, thank you for your service, your hard work, and late evenings on this challenging process does not go unnoticed. Thank you. I'd like to comment on 3 topics. First one is fairness and equity for all. Second relates to spending increases. How much is enough? When do spending increases get to be too much? And how to maintain our financial stability is the third topic. My comments are provided from a perspective as a resident, a volunteer working with Fairfield Senior Advocates and other community organizations, and as chair of the town's strategic plan committee. First topic, fairness and equity for all. Are we being fair and equitable in our spending? We have a population of seniors over 65 of 9,000, which is 15% of the town. They're being provided programming equivalent to 1.5% of our budget. Is that really fair and equitable? I submit to you that it's not being fair or equitable in how we're handling that. As prior speakers have identified, we need to realign our thinking to maintain the town's ability to thrive and maintain our financial stability. Allowing the town to become unaffordable and undesirable for seniors will have dire results for all. Spending increases, second topic. How much is enough? When do they get to be too much? It's uncontroverted that spending at our state level has caused a problem. It's recognized that constantly increasing spending and raising taxes does not solve the problem. When our property values are falling and we're only experiencing tax increases, one needs to wonder how much is too much. We can see property value declines in neighboring communities as well as Fairfield. The upcoming reval will have big implications. When will we decide a change of direction on spending is needed? Old habits, patterns, and beliefs are not supportable or rational in our current state and town fiscal environment. As a board, your action can provide that needed new direction. Third topic, how to maintain our financial stability. Spending is a key tactical and strategic challenge. It's our most immediate challenge, yet the most in our control. Ignoring that imperils everything, especially the town's financial stability. Spending more on the largest and fastest growing component of the budget without evidence that we are being effective and efficient and impactful in that spending is foolhardy.
Thank you, Mr. Wynn.
In closing, Albert Einstein is quoted as saying, "We cannot solve our problems with the same level of thinking that created them. Now's the time to apply new thinking. We should do that and not wait until it's too late." Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Before, I want to recognize Mr. Wynn and his board, the Strategic Planning Committee. It's a project that's near and dear to my heart. I've been speaking about it for years. And they've done some real excellent work and put in a lot of effort. And we are going to hear from that board at the Board of Finance later this spring, and we look forward to it. So, Mr. Wynn, I want to publicly thank you on behalf of the Board of Finance. Thank your board, if you would pass that along. And we look forward to hearing from you with the Strategic Planning Committee later. Thank you.
Ellen Blomberg, 100 Fairview Avenue, and as a parent, I'd also like to thank you for the Strategic Planning Committee. That was a great, productive meeting at our Osborne Hill School PTA, so thank you. That was such a treat to get the experience to be recorded and hear our needs. I guess I'm upset about the division that this meeting causes. As parents, none of us want to see the seniors ignored in this town. And year after year, I don't know how this is productive. We sit here every year, the seniors say my taxes are too high, the parents say our budget is too tight. I don't know if there's a different way to do this, but it's not, it just doesn't seem productive. Second, community, we moved here for the schools. We lived in an area that was much more expensive, so for us, it was a much better tax rate, a much better cost of living. We trade as a young professional working family an hour commute for a great school system. And we are not the only ones. So if we want to talk about the needs of the population, the young family population is huge, and we put a lot of money into this town, and we volunteer so much at the schools. And this, my last comment is just about this misconception that this is some sort of inflated budget. I don't know where that came from, or what, it's just a sentence we're going to throw out there, higher taxes, scare people, inflated budget. There's some serious facility issues in this town. Walter Fitzgerald campus, ECC, what's going to happen at Mill Hill? What about Sherman? These aren't even, my child's at Osborne Hill School. This has nothing even to do with me. But I try to go to as many Board of Ed meetings as I can and listen to every topic, whether it's about the high school, curriculum, or what the parents at Sherman are facing. I'm part of this town, and I'd love to know more about the senior needs and be able to help how we can, because every member of this town is important. But this is not some sort of inflated budget. We need air conditioning in all the schools. My son sits in a classroom that's 90 degrees with can't open windows because of security. And air conditioning is last on the list because there's so many other important facilities being neglected. I just think it's not an inflated budget. This is basic maintenance.
Thank you very much. Ma'am, can you please sign in? Can you please sign in? Thanks.
Good morning, Riney Noor, 83 Alberta Street. Thank you for your service, and I hear one of you is even giving up part of his birthday to be here today, so thank you so much. And I'm a 20-year resident of Fairfield. I have 4 kids, 2 of which are in college, 2 of which are in high school. And I'm a pretty active volunteer in the PTAs, Mill River Wetland Committee, and Fairfield Cares, which is the designated prevention council in town. So as part of my PTA hat, I got to witness a recent Valentine Heart Month luncheon at the Senior Center, where we had musicians from Ward and Ludlow, culinary students from Ward and Ludlow, serve a luncheon to the seniors. It was the perfect example how Fairfield is the package deal, how Fairfield does not function one without the other and make it the wonderful community it is. So if you consider any kind of change to the budget, please consider reinstating the $700,000 our Board of Selectmen has cut from the budget. And I also would like to know, you to know that as part of Fairfield Cares, we see a lot of the mental health and substance misuse issues that face our town. And these are things that are quite scary. And I know people who have lost children to addiction. I know people who have children in rehab. And these costs to society are immense. So investing in our children's mental health is of utmost importance. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for your service. And you stole my line. You let the cat out of the bag. It is Mr. DeWitt's birthday today. He assures me he stopped celebrating them some time ago. So, but our next speaker, please.
John Levinson, 883 Harbor Road. Two unrelated points. Since 2014, our town spending is up 7%. Kudos to Mr. Tetro, the police, the firemen, and all the town employees for doing such a great job in holding this increase to below inflation. During the same 6 years, the BOE spending is up 21%, while our students actually have dropped 5% despite repeated forecasts. Every time a forecast is made, that population will be growing. It just doesn't. Our per population spend is now up 28% versus 2014, over 4 times the growth in town spending and probably 3 times that of inflation. Have our schools gotten materially even better? I don't think so. Enough is enough. Please cut the increase in the BOE spending with the message to the Board of Equity, to the Board of Education, to pay teachers more, administrators less, improve our outcomes for our students, and improve the value to our town. My second unrelated point, we have a rainy day fund. It's targeted at 8 to 11% of our budget. And it's important as a rainy day fund and also to our AAA bond rating. However, after this budget, the rainy day fund is apt to be about 12%. I suggest the BOE consider not adding additional money to the rainy day fund in order to reduce our tax increase this year. Together, math suggests we could do, with a few creative ideas, some things that could hold our tax increase almost to 0 this year. And please do what you can to try to make that happen. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. As regards the comments on the fund balance, as discussed at, I believe it was our last meeting, we are re-implementing our fund balance committee, which looks at the town's management of its rainy day funds every so often when we hit targets. The good news is, because of actions that we've taken over the last number of years, we went from a very low balance and being on a negative watch with the credit rating agencies related to that fund. We've actually now come up and we're at about our target for that fund. And there's a significant amount of money there. So the discussions will continue with the board as we move forward as to where do we need to put those funds to A, maintain the AAA bond rating, B, get the appropriate return on our investment, C, continue to fund our long-term obligations. See, somebody else spoke earlier about state and what's really run the state aground. What's really run the state aground is they took the easy way out and didn't fund their long-term obligations, such as the teacher pension costs and all the union costs. They took the lower tax increases, didn't fund those. The actuaries came in and said, you've got massive holes here and you need to spend that money now. So what does the state do? They turn around and they try to pass it back down to us for their fiscal mismanagement of our money for the last 30 to 40 years. What we've done is taken the exact opposite approach. And when these long-term obligations are entered into, whether it be contracts or the bond rate to make sure we keep the bond rating, we have actually funded our long-term obligations, shored up our balance sheet. And by the way, that's hard to do because there's no lobbyist. You didn't hear anybody get up here and say, please fund the fund balance, oh my God, or put more money in contingency. But we do that every year because we're looking a little bit further down the road because that's what you elect us all to do. And we'll continue to do that. We'll continue to adjust our policies as events warrant. So thank you. And I appreciate you paying attention to that as well. Anybody else?
Hi. I've written a letter to the board, which I'll happily leave with you. I don't want to read the whole thing, but I'll just comment on a few excerpts. This is regarding elderly tax credits. Although a speaker before me talked about the value of seniors in the town and how many of us have lived here for years, my comment about that is that I can't quantify having seniors in town, but I can certainly tell you that it's much less expensive to give a senior a tax credit that will keep a senior in town than it is to spend $17,000, which is the estimate per student per year. And those of us who are seniors who, as has been previously stated, have lived here for years and contributed to all of the values that the town now enjoys, in order to retain us, a senior tax credit revision is certainly important. And unfortunately, the tax credit situation that's in place now is quite punitive to some of us who have prepared for our senior living by having assets that exceed the current maximums allowed. So I'll leave you with this letter. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, you can give it right to our clerk. Thank you. Sorry, I should have said that.
Hi, I'm Lisa Vancho, and I am the Board of Ed budget rep for Fairfield Woods Middle School. I'm just speaking on behalf of our board that we would like you to support the budget in full and restore the $700,000. I'm also speaking on behalf of myself as an individual, 725 Galloping Hill Road. I have 2 children in the schools, and I won't repeat what everyone else said, and I've also sent you an extensive letter, but I just would also ask that you support the budget in full, primarily because we all know that the majority of the budget is based on salaries, pensions, and maintenance. If you look at that as maintenance CapEx, and everything above that line is extra, anything that you cut will impact our curriculum, our programs, and anything else that will help propel our school systems into the 21st century. There's really not a lot left. So any cuts do impact the children, and in today's day of safety being very important, mental health and other mandates coming from the state, we don't have a lot of room. It's a very, very small, tight margin. So any cuts do impact us. I really hope that everyone in this room really understands that. Most of this budget is fixed in a way. So anything above that line is impacted no matter what. So thank you very much for your consideration. Thank you for all the work that you do. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Anybody else? Anybody else?
Hi, Sharon Pastilli, RTM District 3. I'm sorry, this...
Can you give us your address, Sharon?
Sure, 107 Loader Drive in Fairfield, obviously. So I came just to speak in response to the letters that I've received so far from residents in District 3, and also specifically to the $700,000 cut that the Board of Selectmen proposed. So my preliminary understanding is that that cut would result in a loss of $100,000 per hour being able to study air conditioning and indoor air quality in our schools. And my daughter has asthma, and she has a very sensitive dust allergy. And there are parts of our schools where she literally cannot be because of the air quality. She can't go to the ward large gym. I've had to pick her up there with an inhaler because she's been in distress. And also, we've all noticed that in the spring, because of climate change, our springs are getting hotter and hotter, and our kids are extremely uncomfortable in schools. So I do think that the money that's allocated to indoor air quality is really important for us to study. And it also creates an OSHA risk because you know, there has been mold found in the schools, and I remember when I first moved to town was when McKinley had to be demolished, you know, because of the mold problem. So we have to invest so that we're not creating larger costs down the road. And my understanding is that the remaining $600,000 would be mostly allocated to maintenance projects. And so if my understanding is correct, this is once again, you know, we have to invest in the maintenance of our schools because otherwise these projects are going to cost us more later. And I think that Smith Richardson was an example of that. You know, we have a building that we didn't have the funds to maintain properly, and now we're spending more to rebuild the entire thing. So we need this investment for our town.
Thank you. All right. Seeing no other speakers, I'm going to go to our board members. Mr. Sahagan, you have something?
Yes, thank you. Frank Sahagian, 20 Chelsea Street. I have the distinction of being a 35-year resident, a teacher, and as you know, teaching even some of your children, as well as a senior. And I'd like to speak
about that grade. No.
Yeah, right. I appreciate the way you guys got in the weeds with Dr. Jones and his budget, as you always do. But now let's not lose sight of the big picture. Let's not lose sight of the forest for the trees. Close to 80% of this budget, as you well know, is locked into salaries and benefits, which are a collectively bargained agreement, which, as you also know, a Board of Finance member serves on that bargaining committee, as I did on the other side. The last agreement that we came up with had a three-year term, where it was a staggered agreement, and we're in year number 2 right now, and just let it be known that that was not from our side of the table, but from the other side of the table. And I don't think it serves the town well. It doesn't serve the town well because it's not unlike kicking the can down the road like we do in maintenance, which you spent a lot of time talking about the last review. It's a disincentive to teachers at the high end of the step scale to retire when you do that. So don't be surprised next time when you see that there will be not as many retirees as you probably had hoped to see. So kicking that can down the road does not serve well. Lastly, per pupil expenditure, we've talked a little bit about it, and I know it's not a highlight for some of you folks because you like to now want to look at the denominator. It's $17,005 for Fairfield, $19,000 for Fairfield County, and it's also noteworthy to realize that we have 2 high schools in this town, and I'm not advocating to go to one, but recognize that's very costly. Lastly, I would just like to, speaking from the inside, say commend the central office, commend the Board of Education and the administration for where they manage this district. In light of the unrelenting, unending unfunded mandates from the state, continually more challenging demands on special education, costs for safety, less cost sharing coming to this town, now we have ECC added to the list. I'll go out on a limb, please, put the $700,000 back in.
Anybody else? Seeing none, I'm going to go to my left and start with Mrs. Esma with any comments she'd like to have.
Good morning, and I want to thank everyone for coming out, sharing your thoughts, and also writing emails. We do read every one of them. Before I get to my prepared remarks, I just want to say thank you to the seniors. I will be one in 2 years. However, I did move here 11 years ago. I've never had children because of the schools. So I do want us, to come together as a town, not be pitted against one another. But I'd like the public also to know that you have until May, and I'm sorry I don't know the exact date, to apply for the senior tax relief. So if you don't know this already, please visit the town website and make sure that you can follow an application process. It has been a pleasure and an honor serving this town since 2013, first on the RTM and on this board since 2017. I am committed to keeping Fairfield the not-so-best-kept secret in Fairfield County. So I want to share some good news and positive results. This is a town you can all be proud of. We have just been voted the #1 business-friendly town in Connecticut by Yankee Institute. This is demonstrated by the increase in our economic development and the recent 1% growth in our grand list. We have also, as you heard earlier, been voted one of the safest towns, and that safety does certainly come with a cost, especially in the schools. The past 5 years, we've seen the lowest average tax increase since 1995, almost 25 years. We have accomplished this thanks to the excellent leadership and sound fiscal stewardship of our first selectman, Mike Tetreault. I'm proud to say this board has approved these reasonable budgets, and in one case even restored public works and library material cuts to our contingency fund, which unfortunately was subsequently cut by the RTM over our objections. Despite that, we are on track to restore funds to these very services that mean so much to this town while keeping budget increases in check. You deserve great services, which we deliver more efficiently than almost any town in Fairfield County. We are making wise use of your tax dollars, finding efficiencies, modernizing systems, and improving the quality of services that we offer. In your municipality, please remember every tax dollar you spend comes back to you. For this reason, and because of our excellent schools, families are choosing Fairfield. Fairfield and Fairfield County are seeing population growth over the last 5 years, and we remain the state's economic engine. Despite ongoing budget constraints in Hartford, we have managed these challenges and maintain a very strong balance sheet. We are well positioned to weather uncertainty ahead and will do all we can to maintain our valuable services and protect your tax dollars. Mike Tetreault is one of the leaders bringing our town into the Fairfield Five towns coming together to market Fairfield County and expand our economic development. Despite the loss of state aid for education and property taxes paid by GE, we have maintained the quality of our schools and have found new businesses to grow our tax base. We've continued to invest in major capital projects, including schools, and maintain the level of our reserves, which earn us that AAA rating from the credit bureaus. This allows us to bond at favorable rates and at favorable terms. I am proud of the work so many in Fairfield have done to make us a special and attractive community. I advocate for wise investment and careful spending. I support our schools and libraries. I intend to support this budget and hope my colleagues will do so as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you to everyone who came out today to comment on the budget. It's been very interesting and informative. Also, thank you to everyone who's taken the time to write us your emails. I have read them, and I appreciate your thoughts and your comments. I, like you, am a taxpayer. I've lived here for about 20 years. I have 3 kids who have gone through the school system, and I really see the tremendous value those schools offer to us. I also appreciate our libraries, our senior center. I work with seniors every day. I go into people's homes. I hear the stories from seniors in terms of what they're facing, and I know the tremendous value that our senior center and our social services offer to the citizens of this town. From my perspective, the main theme that's emerged during our budget meetings with department heads, as well as from your comments today and your emails, is the absolute requirement that we find and deliver the right balance between services and a fair tax rate, keeping those tax increases low. This balance, in my mind, is really tested by the need, in many cases, to make short-term investments that will hopefully deliver long-term results and decrease costs overall. And a couple of you have alluded to that today, and to me, it's so important to remind ourselves of what cutting costs and then potentially taxes might result in the long run. And I'm going to just bring up something that nobody's addressed, which is our paving budget, which is paving is a huge part of our operations budget, and it's the go-to. We go there and we cut when we need money because we think, okay, in the short term, nobody will notice those roads, but in the long term, those roads do have an effect in that we have to play catch up. And this year, for example, there is a restoration of funds into paving, and that's the type of investment that in my mind must be made and that's worthwhile. That also is true when we look at our education budget. And again, some of you have mentioned that it's about 65% of our budget, and many of those costs are fixed by contractual obligations. There's not a lot of fat in that budget. And part of what we've done, unfortunately, is that we have delayed maintenance. We have to cut costs. And again, those cuts are going to come back and bite us in the end. We have to invest in maintenance. In addition, I just point out, nobody mentioned this, but last year we invested in additional social work staff in the school. That was a cost. However, our superintendent and our Board of Ed members have told us that we've actually found savings this year because we made that investment. Fewer students are being outsourced or sent to schools outside of our public schools, which are quite expensive. So we found savings by making that investment. And I'd like us to be, to recognize that these investments are so important. Overall, I support this budget. I think it's lean. I think it's fair. Most of our department heads have kept their budgets flat. And if there are increases, it's mainly, again, those contractual obligations that we have made and must honor. Looking forward, I love some of the ideas. I love the strategic plan. I'm looking forward to hearing more about our strategic plan because I think much of what was mentioned here today gets to where do we go as a town? How do we want to work with our seniors? How do we ensure that we retain our seniors? How do we ensure that the excellence of our schools is maintained? So overall, thanks again, and I look forward to hearing more from the Strategic Planning Committee. Thank you.
That was Mrs. Martin.
Yes, I said thank you, Sheila, because I know you, but just for general.
Sure.
Thank
Yep. David Becker. So thank you everyone for coming out. I think we've got a good turnout, maybe lighter than some years, but more than others. And it's always something that we look forward to each year. This will be my 10th and final budget, so a little bittersweet to come out here and hear from everybody. 4 years on the RTM and 6 on this board. But come November, I guess time to be home more often at night, I suppose. But you know, I entered this in a public service in a recession. I think I don't know if we're heading into one or not. I hope not. But it's been 10 years of difficult decisions, difficult budgets. Just, you know, unfortunately not always enough money or, you know, to go around, and always an eye on the tax rate. And no matter what, the goal I've always had, and I hope my colleagues as well, has been to keep Fairfield a special place that we've heard of through many of the people coming up today, through many of you. But just to keep it the special place it is, keep it an affordable place, keep it a place with, you know, programs, be it education or things like the marina or for the seniors. And that's something I'm going to keep my eye on all the way to the end. This budget, I'm hopeful that we all make the right decisions come Wednesday and throughout the rest of the process. And again, I just want to say thank you to everybody for the opportunity to serve you, and thank you for coming out today.
Mr. Becker, we'll go all the way to my right, to Mr. Nicola.
Thank you all for coming out today. I think this is my 6th year. I lose track over time.
He's not good with numbers.
I'm not. You know, I've been on the Board of Finance, the RTM, the Board of Education. It all kind of runs together, to be honest with you. But I do appreciate all of you coming out here today. And, you know, the one thing that I really got out of this meeting is the comments from the seniors. And I really appreciate that, you know, you want more services from the town of Fairfield. And I appreciate those comments, and that's something that I'm certainly going to be cognizant about going forward. I guess the things I would add is, you know, over the last 5 years, our tax increases in Fairfield have been right around 2%. And, you know, that's a testament to the first selectman, the Board of Selectmen, this board, the RTM, and to the Board of Education also. And we're struggling to maintain our high-quality services here in Fairfield, despite what's going on in Hartford. And I think we've been able to do that pretty much over the last 5 to 10 years. And we're dealing with this the best we can. So it's a balancing process. I hear from both sides. I appreciate the commentary from both sides. I understand it. It's hard to deal with, but we're doing our best to maintain our services, and we'll continue to do so. And once again, thank you so much for coming out tonight. It's greatly appreciated, or this morning, not tonight. It's greatly appreciated, and we'll be voting on this on Wednesday. Thanks.
Thanks, John. Jim Walsh, Board of Finance. Number one, I'd like to thank everybody for coming out, from not only all of you that I'm seeing here, but also the individual speakers that got out to speak. One of the women who spoke quite eloquently talked about she didn't like the process and that we pit people against people. Well, I think it's a great process, actually. It's a process this board sees every time we meet, because there's advocacy groups for different things. We are a large community that have many things going on in town. And there are advocates for those things. I mean, we have people who come to advocate for a new golf clubhouse that is in horrible shape and hasn't been rebuilt in about 50 years. There's other people who say, I hate golf. Why are we wasting money on it? We have people who love using our beach, walking our beach, and it's, I think, one of the jewels of our town. When we go to put up a pavilion, there's people who come out who basically say we should have porta potties there. So, and there's every time we vote on things and about spending money, there are people on both sides, but we are a community and this body always looks at it that way, that there are advocates for different things, and a lot of things we have and the services we provide is what makes Fairfield, Fairfield. So in regards to that balancing act, there were some interesting things today, I thought. It was great to see the seniors come out and to hear from the seniors. It was actually probably pretty close to being the largest advocacy group here today, which I thought was great and refreshing. And it was good to hear about some of the problems at the senior center and some of those things. And it's a little embarrassing, I think, for this town to hear about some things we've been talking about for 10 or 15 years. I wish Julie DeMarco was still here. I'm glad she did show up. But to hear that we're having seniors use bathrooms that were designed for kids. I've been in those bathrooms, they've taken us for tours, they've told us that those things were going to be improved. But you have seniors who have some mobility problems. And to see how low these toilets are and how tight these stalls are that were developed for young bodies back in 40 years ago, shows no respect for those seniors, to be quite honest with you. Shows no respect at all. If any of you walked into those bathrooms, you'd be embarrassed. And the fact that we're still hearing, I'm embarrassed that I didn't get down there to see that they hadn't been fixed. I think this administration has to take a leadership role and to put money in for funding, at least get the bathrooms done. I mean, it needs to be done immediately. The town side has a non-recurring budget, about $2 million a year. They've got to take some of those funds and put them into place next year to replace those bathrooms. I mean, it's things like you hear like this, you can't even believe that we're still talking about those things. In regards to paving, it was good to hear Ms. Marmion bring that up, because paving has been kind of a joke in this town for the last number of years. I mean, we all know we're supposed to pave about 13 miles of road a year, that we're supposed to spend slightly over $3 million, maybe because oil's down in price, a little bit less. But it seems like that has become kind of a political football that needs to change, and the town's got to get honest, because you have the Public Works Department coming, telling us that we need to spend certain amounts of money, certain things need to be done every year. We come up with a plan, and then for some reason, the same guy comes in after meeting with the first selectman and tells you, oh no, we only need half of that this year. Why do you need half of it? He really can't explain it. After being drilled for 45 minutes last year, he can't even explain it, why he only needs half, other than he's just trying to help out the town. Then this year, he wants $2 million. Wants a little more than that. But then the first selectman adds onto it, takes $700,000 away from the school, cuts that from the school budget, but miraculously adds $700,000 onto paving, even though the head of the department's only asking for $2 million. First selectman thinks 2.7 now is the number. It makes no sense. It's a joke. This ball keeps kicking around. We can't get legitimate answers or numbers of what we're supposed to do with paving. Other than I think most of us would agree the road should be in better shape. We're behind on paving. We all know that. But seriously, we need to get a legitimate, honest answer and budget in regards to paving. In regards to education, and after the first selectman's cut of $700,000, I guess the increase is 4.6. When we look at that number, it's actually a little higher because of our contribution to surplus. It's a very complicated thing, but it probably raises it to almost 5%. But there's reasons for that. Obviously, the largest driver on that was the last teacher union contract, which went up over 8%. These are numbers that are probably not sustainable, but that's the largest driver. look at the budget. It's the largest driver. We can't control that number. Other drivers in that budget are special education. And special education is spread out through all over the budget. Now, I'm one who thinks that, that's kind of a hard number to cut. I mean, I think that a community should be judged on how we treat the most needy in our community. And I've been proud that some of those special education numbers, after being explained what they were, have kind of gone the way they are. So to me, there's not much that can be done with that, but we do need to get the education budget under control. What scares me about the entire budget is that, for this year, is that the rate of increase currently before us seems reasonable. Certainly, I think it could go down, but we're funding it with a lot of gimmicks. Those gimmicks are, we're using reserve funds and we're using a tax sale. Without those two things, this budget would be drastically higher. So where are we going to go next year when those reserve funds aren't there? Where are we going to go when we don't have a tax sale because we sold all those accounts receivable that we had? Next year, it could be a lot higher. The other thing that scares and keeps me up at night is what the state's going to do. Pushing us to have to pay for teachers' pension plan that the state agreed to pay. It's their problem. But the old governor, and now the new governor, their first thing is to try to push some of those down onto the local community. To me, if I had a problem in my house, or if I had a company, it was my problem, you settle it there. You don't push it back down onto other people. But that seems to be always what Hartford seems to want to do. They want to control the tax increase up there to make them look good so that politicians get reelected. I'm hoping they're not going to do it. John and I have heard rumors that that might be changing. However, we'll see what happens. But we could get through this year. We're going to have to look at whether we're going to cut anything. But the coming years are going to be scary, to be quite honest with you. Thank you.
Good morning, Chris DeWitt. This is my 13th budget. I agree with a lot of what Mr. Walsh just said, but I want to speak about this meeting and process just a little bit because I completely disagree with the lady who said that this is divisive. This is the absolute opposite of divisive coming here. I don't know where else we can hear seniors and parents and a fourth grader, I believe, come up and speak so eloquently about how he's passionate. So, good on you, man. Passion, everybody speaks with passion. It's great. Mr. Flynn said it, we're a finance board. And one of the most important things that I think a finance board has to do is speak with data. Speak with data on senior tax relief, speak with data on schools. I can't remember the RTM number 3 delegate that was up here, who quoted you numbers about how the $700,000 decrease was going to be parsed from the Board of Ed budget. I have personally not heard from anyone on the Board of Ed how that $700,000 is going to be parsed. So please, please, don't take that as gospel, right? No one on the Board of Ed has voted. The Board of Ed, frankly, right at this point, doesn't know how we're going to vote. So, please speak with data. I also want to say that please don't rely on Facebook for data. Coming here is fantastic. I appreciate everyone coming out. I appreciate Mrs. Knorr calling me out on my birthday. But coming here is very, very important. Watch all of our other meetings from home, but once a year, come here, take this couple hours of your time and move forward. I don't have much else. One thing that I don't want to forget about is someone said, thank you for putting together this budget. We do not put together this budget. Our CFO and his staff put together this budget. The book, you can see the book here, it's a couple, 300 pages. I want a big shout out to them. They give us the foundation from which to have all these deliberations, have all these good discussions, and I want to make sure that we all recognize those people. And I think that's it. Thank you for coming out again.
Thank you, Mr. DeWitt. Tom Flynn, I'm the chairman of the board. It was interesting. One of the letters, and it was one of the most interesting letters I got from a taxpayer in a number of years. And it was a mom, obviously. She signed it and she said, you know, I have 3 kids in the public schools. And the letter began, all I care about is education. And the letter ended, I don't care about the beach, the library, the senior center. And this isn't a bad person. The letter wasn't a bad letter. It was an honest letter. And as a private citizen, with where she is in her life and with what her priorities are, which are her kids, it was appropriate. We get 60,000 people in this town. Everyone could write that letter from a different perspective. And as Mr. Walsh kind of pointed out, a different priority. And when you sit up here and you serve in town government, your job is to balance all of those priorities, because you don't just represent that mom. You don't just represent that senior. You don't just represent that beachgoer. We represent all of you. And our job, year after year, is to balance those priorities and to help decide what we, collective we, all of us, in the 59,500 that aren't here, can't afford, can't pay for. So having meetings like this are very helpful in regards to that discussion, actually. Hearing from you is very helpful. Nobody ever goes away from a budget process, particularly in difficult times, completely happy. The question is, was the process fair? Are we trying to reach the result to benefit the most people? And I know my colleagues and I've been doing this for 14 years, always try to do that. And I'm always asked, and this year I was asked, we had an intrepid reporter that kept on calling me every few days. What are you guys going to do? What are you guys going to do? React to this, react to this. And I always said the beauty of our board is we never do that. We always take the budget as a whole, look at it completely, and then make our determinations based on the best available facts to move the town forward and to protect us as much as we possibly can. And I'm very proud of that process, and I'm very proud that we do that. And Mrs. Esma labeled a bunch of things that we've accomplished as a town in the last 5, 6, 10 years, actually 14 years. And I know all of us on this board have been very proud to be part of that as well. Some things more proud than others, but overall proud. But I don't want to waste a lot of time patting ourselves on the back. I don't want to waste a lot of time telling everybody how great things are. It's almost like that old comment, when England slept. Remember that? The expression, and there was a book. This is almost when Fairfield slept. Because as we look out over the next number of years, let's talk about the things that are going to hit the town. There's the continued state fiscal crisis. They're trying to jam down $700,000 worth of expense on us this year and take money away from us. There's that old expression, first selectmen use it, I use it, once you let that nose into the tent of that $700,000, they're not stopping there. Next year, they've already said it's like 1.5. And the year after that, it's like 200,000. That's going to crowd out services, or 2 million, sorry, it's an additional increase. That's going to crowd out services. There's the federal tax law changes. I think Mr. Morton spoke about the so-called SALT laws. that cap our deductions at $10,000 for property taxes as well as state income taxes. People are just starting to get their tax returns. I just got mine. It's painful, and that's going to hurt our citizens in a very direct way. We just settled contracts with labor unions not that long ago, but we settled them largely in arrears, and all those contracts are going to get back up for renewal. Mr. Walsh talked about that, the contractual costs and what percentage they are of the budget, because the town is a service organization. We live in a binding arbitration state, and none of those contract negotiations come before the Board of Finance. We don't get a vote. Those are handled by the Board of Education, the RTM, the Board of Selectmen, and yet they represent a huge chunk of our annual budget. And in a state that's binding arbitration in a community that's considered wealthy, that puts us right in the crosshairs when it comes to the arbitrators. We also have something that we haven't talked about. It's a dirty little secret right now, but it's going to impact all of us. And it's not so much a secret in certain sections of the town. And that's the revaluation of all our properties that comes in 2020. We all have friends in Greenfield Hill. We've all had friends that maybe wanted to move from Greenfield Hill. Has anybody paid attention to what the real estate prices in Greenfield Hill have happened? Revaluation is a fancy way of saying redistribution. There's going to be a redistribution of this tax burden after 2020 to the rest of the town. As Greenfield Hill's property values slump because of the overall state of economy, because of the change in where people want to live and whether they want those large houses with the increased maintenance cost on 2 acres of property, or they want to live closer to the center of town. Those property values have declined. Now, here's the secret, the dirty little secret. The upside, the new commercial development, the sales, the remodeling of houses largely down at the beach, that's all been factored in. That's been factored in to the revaluation, to our tax base, to our grand list, right? What hasn't been factored in is the depression of values where houses haven't sold yet, but their neighbors' houses have sold at 60% of the value. So those are all coming our way. Though we need to have honest discussions about the fiscal pressures that are pushing down on the town of Fairfield and are squeezing out much needed services, whether they be education, whether they be for senior citizens, whether they be the senior center. That's why I call it Well Fairfield Slept. We need to not worry so much about the budget today. Granted, we will do that, right? We need to worry about tomorrow. We need to worry about what our priorities are. It's why I've been advocating for the strategic plan for so long, why we as a board have been advocating. This isn't about today. It's about what we are in 5, 10, and 20 years. And the decisions today, both budget as well as strategic, reflect that opportunity and that risk. That's what we worry about. And when we sit up on this board, that's what we focus on. It's not just today's budget, but what does it represent for our priorities, our risks, and our opportunities in the long term. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time slapping ourselves on the back. I'm too concerned about what we're confronting ahead together. So we're all in this together. And consider that what your priority is right now, whether it's like that mom who sent that great letter or it's something else, your priority is likely to change over the next number of years as your life circumstances change. And we need to take that into account as we face these times. So I too want to add my voice to those that thank you for coming out. Thank you for the letters. Thank you for your participation in our democracy. I greatly appreciate it, and we learn a lot from you every year. So with that, I'll call for a motion to adjourn. Mr. DeWitt, do I have a second? We'll take Ms. Zesma. All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you, everybody. What you guys do? John, you got sports this week? I love you too.